everyone, and welcome to the next lesson. In this lesson, we are going to be looking at commands you should know. Commands that you should know when you're using Civil 3D. They are basic AutoCAD commands. I'm not going to go through that. What I'm going through are commands that I know when you are starting out with Civil 3D, you face this challenge, and this is a command you should know. So the first command is something we call FileDia, FileDia. And what this does is just specifies the folder naming structure that you want to use. So we're going to type in FileDia, and you can have it as a 0 and as a 1. And what you're going to find that if you try to save a file, for example, you go to File and you click Save As, you can see that everything is going to come up kind of like the old style. It's not going to bring up that dialog. So it's why it's important to know this command. Normally when AutoCAD crashes, it reverts back to 0. So I always recommend that you type in FileDia and change this to 1. So the moment you change it to 1 and you click File Save As, the normal folder system comes up, as you're seeing right now. So that normal folder system has come up. It's something that's I know when you're learning, when you're starting out with Civil 3D, this is a problem most people face. The AutoCAD crashes and they're wondering, oh my God, I cannot save everything quite well. So change to FileDia. The second one is something we call selection cycling, okay? Selection cycling. Now, selection cycling has a value of 0 or 2. There are cases whereby you'll be drawing lines and 2 lines above each other. So what selection cycling does is that when you turn it to 2, if 2 lines are over each other, you can select. So if I'm just to give you a demonstration, if let's say I have that line and let's say I have this circle, okay, so there's a point where they interface, okay? Now, if I don't have selection cycling on, for example, selection cycling, if I have it at 0, what's going to happen is I have to select the line or I have to select the circle. But if I have selection cycling on and I have it at 2, what's going to happen is if I hover over to that point and I select a dialog box comes up and asks me, do you want to select a circle or do you want to select a line? This is very important when you're doing your designs. You want to have finer control of what you're selecting. Now, there are cases where selection cycling is not the best, but for now, it's very important for you to know that. The next thing is something we call quick properties, which we call QP mode. So QP mode just adds quick properties. So for example, there are cases I turn it on because when I click on a circle, I want to see some quick properties. For example, I want to already see what's the radius, what's the diameter, what's the area. I don't want again run to the left-hand side and click, oh God, that takes too long. And then I can add what I want to see in the quick properties. So QP mode is good to turn it on certain times and it's good to turn it off certain times. But most of the times I always keep QP mode on because I always want to know quick properties. For example, if I select the line, QP mode has a number of properties. I can see the length, I can see all that. And then I can quickly even change the color in that case to something without me having to go. Now, another thing you should know is I always love putting my properties on the right-hand side. So I'm going to turn this off. So what I always do is I click properties and I'm going to drag the properties out here. What I always do is right click here, turn anchor left, and then I click here, icons only. So what happens is I can always click on the properties, and once I move away, we have the 2 space that's still working, which I think is quite very good in case you're dealing with that. Now we're going to another units. Oh God, this is a big one. I think if the most questions I get 45% of the time at my workplace are units. People don't know how to understand the drawings the unit sets in, and this always happens when someone sends you a drawing. So most people know, okay, they know the units command. Okay, the units command will tell you the units of the drawing. But sometimes you can get a drawing in feet, or it has been produced in another program which used imperial kind of system, or someone drew their drawing in imperial. They did know, but they drew it in imperial. Or the surveyor somehow forgot to do something. So what's important is most cases you find someone didn't put units, but maybe that drawing now should be in meters, but maybe it's in feet. And this is going to affect your coordinate system. So one of the most important commands it's not important, but it's there, is DWG Units. Now I always put a hyphen because I prefer using that old system, but you can just type in DWG Units. And what's going to happen is it's going to ask you what units you want to use. But if you just type in DWG Units, it's also almost similar. You can type in what do you want to use, what units do you want. Number 6 is meters. So I type in that and it's going to ask me what linear display format do you want. I say that. But I'm going to use minus DWG units because that's easier to work with. So it asks me what do I want, and use 6, which is that. It's going to ask me linear display units. I normally stick to 2. Linear display units precision, normally 3. Now it's going to ask you, do you want scale objects from other drawings? Yes, this is always good. And it's going to ask you, do you want to match the units to the drawing units? Because you find out if someone has given a drawing that was in meters, but someone has been confused, it's in feet, you tell it, okay, I want to match that. Then normally asks you, do you want to scale? Now, if you know the drawing is in meters and you're trying to tell the drawing that's in meters, then don't tell it to scale. Just accept and say, okay, yes, then save as the drawing. Do a save as, don't save, do a save as and open it. It will work. So it's a command that I think is very important. Coordinate systems is another one. Always make sure you have the right coordinate system for this. I feel this is a no-brainer, but it's a question that always comes up. Someone not putting the right coordinate system, depending on, there's the Google Earth and then there's the native coordinate system that where you're working from and all. That I find is very, very important for someone to know. Then the other thing is the scales. Now the scales, I'm not going to go into this. This is another beast of its own. But when we talk about producing your plan and profiles, you must understand how scales work. You must understand annotative scaling. You must understand why we have these different scales. If you don't, maybe there's another video that's going to be talking about that. But I think if right now you're struggling, I'm going to recommend watching another video on scales. Now, the other commands that you should know, you find out most of the time you're going to operate around here, doing most of the CAD work. And the next one, you're going to operate a lot in insert and doing all that. But the commands I'm highlighting are commands I use maybe 60% of the time. The commands which I use 25% of the time, I've not talked about them now because there are so many commands. But these, I find all the times, it's either units, it's either we're going to, the issue talked about earlier, it's either units, it's either QP mode, selection cycling and all that. Now, then the others are exporting things. So importing a KMZ, that's map import, okay? That's another command you should know. This can help you import so many things. It can help you import shapefiles, KMZs. Now this is always something you do, you always import in KMZs. So it's very important that you select the right format that you need. You want to import in a shapefile? Do you want to import in a KMZ? What do you want to import in? I mean, you can import in so many files as you can see here, but this all with map import. So the next command you must know is map export. It's a reverse of map import. If the other one imports, this one exports. Most of the times you'll be importing in KMZs and shapefiles. 60% of the time. If you're doing very complex work, then you import in other formats. But now for this can export SDF, shapefiles, an SQLite database and all that. And again, that's it. Now, if you have raster tools, there's another command called IE export. That one, it can export out an image that you have in your drawing, a LiDAR image or something. It's a command I use a lot when I'm doing a lot of work. Now, these are the few commands I think you should know. Now, others you'll learn as we go forward in the course. And don't worry, I'm going to hold your hand to make sure you don't get confused. So, otherwise, I hope to see you in the next lesson.